Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
What's up, everybody? We're the Therapy Dudes. I've got Andre with me. I'm Dan Fox. We are here to talk more about addiction and to get personal on this podcast, part two of our addiction piece, around how we've worked with this, what the struggles have been, specifics that we found that has been helpful. And I want to give a shout out to Boulder Psychological Services, our sponsor. Check out boulderpsychologicalservices.com for all your therapy needs. They are a fantastic website with a lot of different features to help you meet your goals.
Yeah.
Andre,
Yeah.
how you feeling today?
Uh, Um, I've been failing on my goals already. I feel like that's relatable to most people after the New Year's. It doesn't take that long, you
Oh
know.
my gosh, we're like classic. It's
We're
like,
classic. I am.
less than a month from New Year's. We're right at the end of January, and
Thought I was better than this.
here it is, right? We're struggling. It's hard to figure it out. Um, will you remind our listeners what your goals are and let us know how you've been struggling?
Well, my goals were to eat healthy, like no fast food and cut out sugar, you know. Finding it really hard, and I'm realizing that the reason why it's really hard, willpower isn't enough. Also, I mean, I just moved. I feel like I have a lot of stressors in my life right now. Um, and it's just, I haven't established a routine that promotes change. I've kind of been floating around. Like I'm still waiting for my new bed. Like it's been 2 weeks of sleeping on the couch, like stuff like that. It just doesn't feel, I'm living in a way that doesn't feel very comfortable right now. Not because my life is bad or anything, it's just circumstances. And I noticed that when I don't get the basics like good sleep, social time, uh, things that make me feel more uplifted, it's hard to create change. It's hard to follow through with changing addictive behaviors because at some point I'm looking for comfort.
Yes. And so that brings me to a interesting thing about how we can use our willpower to help when we have those urges where our willpower is weak. Because there's certain times in the day when our willpower is strong. And
Right.
with somebody who's struggling with food and trying to have a less addictive relationship with food or to just manage what they're eating, oftentimes we can find points in our week where our willpower is strong and we can go to the grocery store and buy the right stuff for our fridge, or we can go through our pantry in our fridge and get rid of the stuff that we know we don't want to have in there. But you just moved. So I imagine that whatever's going on in your fridge and your pantry is not optimal, maybe even not sufficient, and it's easy to just like go grab some fast food or something. What's it been like?
Yeah, I grabbed fast food once and I felt really guilty. It really was interesting how much guilt I experienced and shame. And I was
Oh, I'm so
it's like
glad.
I'm so glad, of course you are. I was like I wanted to cry. No, it wasn't that bad, but I was like, oh shit,
What'd you
like
get? What'd you eat?
I don't want to talk about that. That's personal. But like,
It was Taco Bell. I know it.
oh my God, you're so freaking accurate. So how would you know that about anyway? Um, Yeah, it's one of those things where, there's like a shame spiral that pops up when you relapse, right? Especially if you say it on a podcast and say this is what I'm going to do, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist, like
Stakes are
shit.
higher. We're your
Yes.
accountability team, Andre. It's
Oh
okay.
well, it's rough, dude. It's rough. Um, so I feel like um it's hard to change things when you don't have like it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, how are you supposed to hit change in your life if you don't got like you're not feeling satisfied in this area, in this area, in this like there aren't some stable factors in the lower pillars of your life right now. And right now I'm coming out of a rough year. I'm coming out of a move. I'm coming out of a lot of things that happened that were challenging. And it was, I wonder how much that plays into my addictive behaviors because I think I fell back on them quite a bit to cope with a lot of things that were going on.
Right, right. I
We all
think
go,
you're right. Like when our mood is lower, right, and when we're
yeah,
just dealing with difficult times, our willpower is lower, and those sort of immediate gratifications that the lizard brain wants are much harder to push back against. But I would also imagine that somewhere in that experience, we'll go back to this like getting fast food this week. The lizard brain had a moment where it was like, yeah, I'm getting fast food.
I mean, I was tired. I was hungry. It was late. I'd worked all day. I forgot to eat, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think this is very typical. I think, it doesn't matter that we're like licensed therapists and we've got all this training and we're, talking on a podcast. We're still human beings. We have the same brain operating system. And when we're sufficiently challenged, things are going to start to like come apart at the seams. And
And you saw
figuring
some
out,
of that for me this past summer. You saw how much of a struggle it was.
yeah, yeah. So in a moment of seriousness, I actually would hope that you can be gentle and forgiving with yourself around this process because it really doesn't matter what happens on one given day with your healthy eating, right? This is
Right.
much more about an overall trend during a period of months where it just becomes part of your integrated lifestyle. And I would expect that the trend is going to be really tricky. Like, I mean, you're literally right in the middle of like a move. I know, like we were talking recently about how you were like unpacking packing boxes and then unpacking boxes and moving stuff around, and the mattress
Right.
has not shown up yet, and it's it's a chaotic thing to be doing that and juggling family and work at the same time.
Right.
So, I hope you can bring some, gentleness and sense of like self-care and that it's okay to yourself right now because I really think it is, right? This is like a normal human thing to be going through and it's also temporary.
Yeah.
The
I
mattress
appreciate it. Yeah.
will someday arrive, right?
Someday, God willing, right? I appreciate that, Dan, and such a therapist answer. So, like there's the kind of compassion you'll get for signing up with Dan, and he means it. Um, yeah, and that's the way I kind of been looking at it. I know that addiction is something that takes time to break. I don't see relapses as like failures necessarily. I see them as like cracks we got to pay attention to in the wall. Like, oh, why did this happen? What can we learn from this experience? Well, meal prep. Like focus on, okay, that day is your busiest day with clients. Make sure that you have something maybe the day before cooked or something like that. But I think the hardest part about breaking addictive behaviors is the self-judgment, right? Because it does make you feel weak when you relapse, or it can make you feel like nothing's ever going to change, like these narratives. And what you just offered me was like a reframe. And that's the same reframe that I'm adopting. And I think it's important for us to catch like our narrative, that we spin out of, relapsing or, any kind of failure in life, honestly. I think it was MJ that said, like, everyone focuses on all my achievements, but do you know how much I actually failed before I got there? Right.
Nice,
And
nice.
it's just true. We fail and we learn from those failures. And I don't actually like the word failure. We just, I see them as like learning opportunities. I don't know what else to say, than that. But there's this negative stigma, a negative connotation with the word failure. So maybe don't use failure. Maybe use like, here's my growth edge. Here's a friction point for me that
Yeah.
I've noticing, you know.
Well, and I think failure, if we just kind of, get negative and self-judgmental and start to use language like that, we're robbing ourselves of this opportunity to really dig deeper into the nature and the sort of step-by-step moments of what was going on.
Yeah.
So, like for me, for example, I know when things started to fall apart 2 nights ago, which
Oh,
was
tell us about
it was,
it.
it was kind of late in the evening.
Uh-oh.
I'm generally, weak-willed as the evening wears on, so I'm much more likely to make bad
And,
decisions about food.
and in general, right? Like that's what I
And
know about
yeah, in
you.
general, when I get up throughout the day, in the evening while I'm sleeping. Um, but what I found myself doing is what I often do in the evening, which is that I don't have as much of a scheduled structure, right? Like after 7, 8 o'clock, it's like wind down time, hang out with my wife, watch a little Bridezilla. I mean, it's
Oh
a
yeah.
chill thing. But I'm downstairs, I'm near the kitchen. It's easy to just keep circling back to the pantries looking for junk food. And there happen to be these little like dark chocolate covered coconut things that Costco has a big Costco sized bag of that. And here's my blame other people thing. I did not purchase it or bring it into the house. It was not me, but it made its way into the house. And I'd been nibbling on those 2 or 3 of them a day for the past several days.
Oh.
And I went to the pantry to get one because there was one left.
Mhm.
But when I got there, some sneak from the house had eaten the last one. And in this moment of panic, I just scanned the pantry shelves and saw just a bag of like Nestle's chocolate chips.
Oh no.
And I was
No,
like,
you didn't. No, you
game
didn't.
on. I know. I should. And by the way, everything that we're doing right now is
Right.
my wizard brain, right? I'm in a wizard brain state of mind, just thinking about this stuff, talking about it, trying to like strategize about it. My lizard brain right now is like asleep. It's not even paying attention. It doesn't care. It's like, too much like blah, 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 right? It's not paying attention because this is not the moment where it's like, oh, chocolate, time to strike. But it was 2 nights ago. So handful of chocolate chips, shoved them in my mouth, and I swear within like 2 minutes, I could tell that like my body and my digestive system was just like, oh
Oh, I
no.
get
Oh no, you didn't. Like
it.
you did not just throw this down at the end of your night as we were trying to like settle things down. And I honestly like my stomach has hurt for the last 2 days.
Oh
I've
no.
been annoyed. I know that I've had like some digestive stuff going on, and you know how like you need to have your like I don't know, probiotic flora in your digestive
Right.
system that grows over time, these like microbiospheres of
Eat dirt
all
and
these,
stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, like whatever that take some active acidophilus or some probiotic yogurt or something to rebuild these colonies, right? My colonies have been like ransacked and pillaged, and it takes a while of like healthy eating without like junk food, spicy food, soda, stuff like that getting like thrown in the system to mess that stuff up.
Huh.
So I backtracked and I've been paying for it ever since. And I'm super annoyed. Like last night, I was annoyed because my stomach was hurting as I was going to bed. And I'm like, man, like, I'm an idiot. What am I, right? This is like the wizard brain
Right.
now back
Judgment kicked
online,
in.
judging myself, right? Lizard brain doesn't judge ourselves. Lizard brain is like,
No.
yeah, I got that chocolate. Yeah. Right. But my wizard brain is like, oh, you idiot. Like, how did you do that? But if I slow it down and get past the like self critique, it's like, oh, like I know what happened, which was I was cutting corners. It was late at night. I didn't have my willpower on. I didn't really have a game plan. I didn't use the two strategies that we've talked about before around what I need to do at night, which is drink some tea or get some light exercise. I was just like, the dark chocolate coconut. It's fantastic. And I've had it a few days. It doesn't seem to be a particular problem. I can just get away with it. But then, boom, in like a 5 second moment of weakness. I was like handful of chocolate chip. Like I'm usually good about like that is just not feeling satisfying most of the time. But once I was like in this sort of anticipation for my like dark chocolate payoff, I was like, well, I'll take this cruddy like substitute.
Oh, just like me in the junk food. Yes. Yes, that happens, right? And
Right.
I think a part of all of this is like you gotta tame that lizard brain by understanding every time we make an exception, pretending like what we're doing isn't affecting.
Right.
And
And I would say that,
it's
honestly, my mistake happened days earlier as I started to get away from the healthy proactive behaviors of drinking some tea or getting a little exercise and cutting corners with these little bits of like dark chocolate covered coconut, sugary coconut shreds, I might add. Delicious, delicious. But
sounds so good.
right, if I can bring that into my routine, then I'm in this like healthier place. I've like actually taken care of my body, my mind, my willpower late at night with, tea or a little bit of like yoga or something just to kind of like give me some physical movement before I go to bed. Because I know I'm not actually hungry in those moments. It's just that my mind is kind of wandering around. I don't have much structure. I'm winding down, and I tend to fill the empty space with like a hunt for salt or sugar or oil.
I always think about what Gabo Ramante says about addiction, and he says the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. Do you know what he says it is?
Subtraction?
Almost perfect, but like
I
no.
mean, come on, wasn't that so funny? No?
That
Okay.
was really good. That was good. It was yeah, there we go. Connection. He says
Connection.
connection in the realm of the hungry ghost. That's his book. He talks about how connection is actually key to undoing addiction. And so I wondered what it would have been like if I was driving with you that night and you were just like, "Hey, Andre, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go make like a sandwich."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, but there's this idea that the emotional body, like oftentimes we don't feel fulfilled, and we're looking for fulfillment in addictive behaviors.
Right.
So I wonder if that's something that plays out with you. I mean, I know that that's something that plays out with me often.
Right. No, I like that. I think you're making a really good point in terms of something to be looking for in those moments. And I know that sometimes for myself, even if I'm not around other people, in moments like that, I can sometimes slow down and just, connect with my like deeper, self-caring core center energy and, recognize that, oh, like this is what's going on. Pause, take a couple of breaths and make a better choice that I'm not going to be like regretting 5 minutes later or the next morning.
Yeah, right. And it's, acting out the proclamation that you matter. That's really important. And oftentimes it's like, hey, like what could be fulfilling me here outside of this craving? A hug? I don't know. Like talking to my partner. I don't. What would help?
Nice. All right. Before we wrap, I am
Yes.
leaving town tomorrow morning for the weekend to go to the WWE's fantastic Royal Rumble event at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. And over that 3 days of being out of town, there's gonna be lots of opportunities for me to mess up on my, self-care routines. So just want to say it out loud to you, my accountability partner, my work wife, that I
Proudly your work wife.
I'm gonna be really working at my two evening strategies of, getting some tea, having a little bit of exercise, excuse me, before I go to bed, because I don't want to come back and be like, well, what are you going to do? Like I can actually I'm staying at my in-laws. They are great. They're going to have, healthy food options. There's there's no actual reason to get myself off track as long as I kind of rehearse in my mind the habits and the decisions that I want to be making when I'm there. So that's my goal. We'll see how I do next week.
All right, good luck.
Thank you. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Um, just have grace with yourself when you're dealing with the addiction, kind of like how we reframe things for ourselves today, because there's a lot of shame and feelings of guilt and stuff like that as we're trying to change. And it's not failures. It's points of friction that you can use to understand your addiction better.
All right. I like that. What are you going to do for yourself to have some grace this coming week and get a little
I'm just
farther
gonna play the
into?
voicemails that you always send me, the ones that are like, you're fine, you're good, 'cause, I can't
Yeah.
do it without those voicemails.
All right. You haven't saved those in your like
Save
forever
all of them,
file?
all of
All
them.
right. I will bust one of those out for you, but you for yourself, like, I want you to be envisioning that like this coming week is going to be better than this past week in terms
Yeah,
of the progress that you're making, settling in and getting your routines in order and being intentional about the choices you're making. Right? You got that.
I got it.
All right. To be continued. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe because I need that boost.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes. Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. Listen to them anytime you're coming unglued. Time for therapy dudes. Time for therapy. Time for therapy. Time for therapy dudes. No therapy dudes.
I'll be back.